as always, and we're going to get straight into our first panel session, which I'm very, very excited about this topic. And we're going to be unpacking the fine line between trend chasing and brand integrity. And what springs to mind when it comes to this, I was reading about Salt Bae recently. Anyone remember him? Mr. Salt, what happened to him? He was a meme, he was a trend, he went viral, and now he's just disappeared into the ether. So what is that all about? Was it just trend chasing and brand integrity? In hospitality, you can't afford to stand still. You've got to move with the times, but moving in the wrong direction can cost you dearly. So, chasing trends or staying true, navigating shifts in consumer behavior is our first panel. And we're going to welcome up our wonderful moderator for this session, Gabrielle Mather, founder and CEO, Restaurant Secrets. We've got Chris Clark, Group Managing Director of Cravia, Howell Mather, Kit Head, Jollibee and Chowking Middle East, Jollibee Group. We have Satish Nambia, Head of Operations, Citymax Hotels and Landmark Group, Jing Wang, Chief Operations and Technology Officer at Yum KFC. Let's give them all a nice round of applause this morning. Gabrielle, I will hand over to you.
Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today, especially because it's the first deep dive in operations, and operations is very close to my heart. It's what I do for the last 30 years. So welcome, everybody, and we shall start today with a very interesting topic, which has been introduced already: trends versus brand DNA and integrity. It's such a thin line. Even in my own experience, each time I do a project, I'm wondering, what do I have to bring to the table? Does it have to be something that everybody will pick up, or do I target just a certain amount of people? And we've got some really expert panelists today from different parts of the industry, including hospitality, F&B, QSR. We've got everything here today. So at the end of this session, I will open the floor for questions. Please ask each one of us anything you like. We're going to start first with Zhang, who represents KFC, a brand that doesn't have to be introduced. I came to the country in '96. It was here. It was here. It was in Singapore when I lived there before that. It was in the UK. It's always been around. So the question here is, how do brands like these maintain the brand DNA, maintain that same appeal as markets shift? We have generational shift. We have dietary shift. We have so many shifts in what people are listening to today and people are following. So the question for you, Zhang, from me is, why is the experience, the customer experience, so important in today's world? And how are customer expectations evolving, especially in the QSR industry?
Thank you so much. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here representing KFC today. Actually, your question is very, very relevant and critical because, in today's world, the experience from what we've been observing and the customer feedback is actually the new currency in the QSR industry. This is the key driver of customer choice, loyalty, and advocacy. Customers today are comparing us and any of our brands here to the best experience they had in that day, regardless the category, the consumption occasion, the channel. The battlefield has shifted from the pricing and the proximity, what used to be in the past, to how we make the customer feel, right? And when we get it right, the payoff is very, very evident. For example, do you know what is the difference between a restaurant that is rated 3.9 and 4.1 stars on Google review? 20% sales difference. So 0.2 points equals to 20% of sales up. This is the power of the experience. And if experience is so important in today's world, right? So how actually the customer expectation is shifting, right? And in KFC, we are obsessed about customers. We're obsessed. We do a lot of customer research at the global level, at the regional level. And despite all the cultural nuances and the taste perceptions, etc., we see that there are mainly 4 key trends that are universal. The trend number 1 is control. The customer today and tomorrow want to be in the control of their journey, the whole journey, from ordering to receiving the food, the collection, right? And they want to be at the driver's seat. And it doesn't mean that the restaurant will be humanless. Actually, the interaction needs to be very different in the future. That's number one. Number two is engagement. They want to feel unique. They want to receive personalized offer. They want to, in the whole journey, they want an engaging experience. Number three is seamless. Customers want to experience a consistent and seamless experience across different channels, different restaurants. And they don't know and they don't care if a brand is operated by different franchisees, if we have different suppliers who might have different performance. They just want a seamless and consistent experience. And number four is authenticity. So they want an authentic experience, in a real experience, from how you welcome them and how you even apologize when things go wrong, right? And the industry actually is already evolving in this direction, right? So there are players, including us, where we're heavily investing in technology to make sure that the customer can be at control of their journey. Or other players like Starbucks, I just mentioned one, which is famous to call you by name, right? Write it on the cups, and this makes our experience very personal, right?
Right.
But regardless of the strategy, what we observe is we in KFC, we really believe in the power of consistency, right? So, because one good experience is one win, but what builds the brand is actually a consistent experience over time. And a great brand builds trust and ultimately fuels the growth. Yeah. So in a nutshell, I think, in a summary, the experience is actually the new currency in the QSR world today. The customer expectation is raising higher. The evolution is very fast. And we believe that the success comes from consistency, engagement, and authenticity. Let me pause here.
Absolutely. I love what you said. Totally agree. I'm sure everybody does from the industry. Could you share a little bit more so that the rest of us can learn from your vast experience on how do you do that? Is there a kind of a strategic direction that KFC takes? Because you're right. The product is very consistent. It's consistent here to the taste of the market. It's consistent across the globe. Customer experience is shifting. You're right. Seamless. They want seamless. But again, they're not as social anymore, the new generation. So where is the line between being there for them and then also allowing them to have an experience where they don't feel pushed like our generation was used to? Would you like to share something more on that?
No, I'm happy to share, and I would love to share, a number of shifts and transformations that we are doing as a KFC. But before I do that, I think it would be great for other panelists here to share their experience on what's their view in their industry, and we can happy to talk about how as a KFC we are bringing this to the next level.
We'll come back to you for sure because I am very interested in getting that answer from you. I was thinking about QSRs. We have two gentlemen here who have had huge experience over years with QSR, and I'd love to know how do you people do it? You've got older brands maintaining the brand DNA, evolving the brands like Starbucks or Zata Rosé. We've got a lot of experience here. Share with us how you do it.
Sure, I can go first. So I wanted to bring a little different angle also to the customer experience that's happening today. It's not only the QSR brands that's driving, it's the external companies that's actually driving a lot more change in experience and expectations of the consumers adopted by the QSR today, right? Look at Amazon, right? They started off the quick service e-commerce, got into delivery, and now QSRs are just ranking behind, keeping up and catching up to that experience for it, right? That's one factor that I really wanted to bring it up to it. Second thing, when the expectations are just building up, I would say, by turns today, right? One thing is happening is when you get such a seamless experience across the brand from every touch point, people expect that from every brand. Today, the study shows 85% of the people, if the experience goes wrong in a branch, they're not saying the branch is bad. They say the brand is not right? And they're not willing to give a second chance till they really see an authenticity of them trying to fix it back. So it's quite a lot of driven back and forth with the consumer experiences that we need to be very, very clear about how you want to project your brand to be out there, right? So I think those are the couple of things I felt was important to highlight as well.
Good morning, everybody. Actually, Such a comprehensive answer from Jiang there. I'm not sure how to follow that, and I think he summed up pretty much the whole situation there. But, just to reinforce, really, I mean, a couple of points there. The consistency is key, and that's not a trend, it's not a fad. It's our business in a nutshell. As you say, people don't come for that one-time experience. We want them to keep coming back through the door on each and every occasion. Again, as you touched on, with convenience is the key right now. And how we manage that is through the personalization and the convenience of the experience for the guests on each and every occasion. I think for legacy brands that we operate here in the UAE, we don't chase trends, but I think pretty much like everybody else in this room, I'm sure you've got something called a pistachio and kunafa menu item right now. So of course, we like to participate. You have to keep relevant and follow the latest craze, so to speak. But you have to remain true to your core DNA and consistently deliver on that guest experience, meet their expectations. And just to go back to the expectations, something I used to use a long, long time ago is expectations plus one is a never-ending game, because whatever you do today, your customers will come back tomorrow and expect that plus one, and you have to continue to beat their expectations every single day and continue that evolution of improvement.
Absolutely, beating your best game every time.
Absolutely.
And I also like the part where you commented on the influences, external influences. It's also not just for the QSR, but what's happening in FSR, what's happening generally with how people consider food or dining out. And the QSR industry is so different from what we see as a homegrown. So my sector is the homegrown sector. That's what I've been in. And we faced so many challenges when we came in, from QSRs, the large giants that were the only ones here, to that consistency. That is the word that the FSR tries to, what QSR really does well. But then the FSR gives an experience that the QSR is trying to adopt. So I just love what's going on in the whole scenario of F&B, especially this part where we live. We're so fortunate to have this great F&B options, you know. F&B also exists in hospitality, right? We've had hotels here that used to be the only places to go. So that brings us to Mr. Satish, who represents that part of my curiosity on how the conversation is about trends, the conversation is about brand DNA. Again, you represent an old brand in the market, Landmark, Citymax. We were talking the other day, and you brought in a really good point on how the DNA had to be maintained, but you're looking at trends influencing your guests. They're no longer just B&B, bread and breakfast. Now you need to get the residents, you need to have competitive brands on your portfolio. So my question to you is, with the trends that you see around you, how do the operator look at these trends and then bring the right changes through marketing, through branding, through new product, through all the different elements? Because you cannot have an effective brand if you have not got all the pillars in place. So share with us a little bit more about how do you people do it?
Okay, so morning everyone. I'm a kind of a different animal sitting out here compared to all the giants of retail, and I have no understanding with. I've never worked in, and I'm a big admirer of all these guys, how they run their brands, how they're able to scale it up. I come from a hotel background, been 30 years plus in hotels. So the good thing is that in mid-market, there are two kinds of hotels, hotel chains, where somebody who doesn't want to be F&B heavy and somebody who wants to be F&B heavy. We as a company had always said that we will go heavy on food and beverage, so we create our own home brands. Now, it's very tricky to run a hotel food and beverage and yet stay profitable, because most of the time it's said, we have rooms, so we need to provide X amount of facility. That's one vertical. But there is another vertical of food and beverage which needs to be profitable on its own. So that is where your home brands come. Fortunately, we have very successful home brands in Citymax, mostly beverage-led, but the game is similar when it comes to food or beverage, because if you have your brand proposition right, then the chances of the success is going to be that much more higher. If you want to get your brand proposition right, it's a combination of what's trending, what's the customer expectation from you as an organization, and what are you capable of putting out. It needs to be a combination, and that's how you create your brand proposition. So we did something very recently where we had an empty space on the 16th floor in Business Bay, and we said we must do something. So we did a quick survey in the market and say, what's the gap? what do you want to do, and internally what would you want to do which doesn't collide with the other brands in the hotel. So we came up with something called the Indy 16. I don't know how many people have heard of that. Made the brand proposition first and said, this is how it's going to be. And then that was based on what's trending, what's the customer expectation in that area and also in the city, because we try and attract people as a destination and also we try and satisfy the community. So we came up with that about a year ago. We wanted something which is premium but affordable. It can sound very dubious, but
Very Dubai, though.
we ensured that the design stays premium but affordable. So we could completely see a change in the last 1 year that initially people came with reservations, assuming that it's a very premium place. You're not going to get a place if you don't reserve. And once they have the experience and your repeat ratio starts going up very high, your walk-ins increase. So today it's the other way. You used to have X percentage of reservations and X percentage of walk-ins. Now it's just switched the other way, saying that, okay, this is an affordable place I can go anytime and I would still hopefully get a homegrown brands are very vulnerable to failure if you don't get your proposition right. Hold on to your proposition, make small changes based on your customer feedback, but don't do something which will destroy the fabric of the brand.
Excellent. I really like that. I agree with you. That's the right way. You're a brand guardian. You can't really disrupt it, but you've got to be disruptive.
It is a mix
market's
of
changing.
it's a mix of trends versus expectation. What you're able to put at the right time in the market. What are you capable of?
Yeah.
And the most important thing at the right time. It's like your avocado syndrome. When is it too ripe? When is it too raw? It need to be there at the right time.
And consumers are so conscious that they can tell when a brand is confused, and that's death already. So going slow and observing, doing your own research, maybe some case studies to find out how it looks like. So trends aren't going to. That's the world we live in. We're going to have trends emerging. That's constant. Change is constant. I'd love to ask each one of you to answer this if you can. A trend that really worked. So we can talk about the Kanafa chocolate. I mean, that's gone viral, but there's been other things too that have gone. Myself too, when I do my brands, you try and see where your DNA is not completely destroyed by going totally out of that context. But it could evolve. It could be creative. It could be thinking out of the box. Give me some examples, each one of you, of how that has looked like, where a trend has gone viral and you have tried it and it has brought in loyalty, it has increased customer base, it's actually become a part of your DNA and you've stewarded it really well. You'd like to go first, Chris?
Sure. I'm not sure I have a specific example of a campaign or a trend, so to speak, but I think what it's done is opened up the whole area of and enhanced the whole focus on NPD, new product development. So in terms of following trends, you have that space on your menu that you're constantly looking at for a pipeline of innovation and allowing you to try and test, gauge customer feedback so that perhaps maybe it may make it to the whole menu. And I think maybe that's something that's only become more enhanced and more an integral part of restaurant operations. I'm really interested from Satish's perspective. I mean, in terms of the brand being the Citymax Hotels, but then you have a really exciting opportunity within that food and beverage space to test and almost to create pop-ups within your F&B offering. Obviously, you've got to gauge that, what works, tweak. I find that really exciting.
And also the liberty to do pop-ups, to try something as a byproduct of what you're doing in a small environment, test it. We've had such successes from Expo to in Global Village to Right Market, So many launches, brand launches have occurred. So many investors have come on board for brands that popped up and tried something and it worked. How about you, Kewal?
Yeah, I mean, one thing interesting, very relatable experience I want to share with the audience today. So just before pandemic, while I was managing one of the largest ice cream brands in the world, the brand has never done a delivery and delivery was just picking up, right? Nobody ever thought, because the brand DNA was all about impulse buy, in the moment experience, you come and you select the flavors that you want. Now you want to give somebody a delivery experience. Now you're completely going against the DNA. I'm not impulse buying. I'm not selecting my flavor. And then will I be able to deliver it? Right? That's the question, right? You can deliver pizza, even operationally, right? So all of those things have to be taken into the account for, right? But then once you looked at the trends were going to stay, you got to figure out the way to get into it. You just can't avoid it. You got to be part of it. And that, I think, that thought brought the team together and started testing it out and see, how do we really, you can't be perfect on day one, but at least let's start. Started off with the smaller menu, with some basic flavors, and then it started showing the trend, and then the pandemic hit. It just became a necessity. And then you continue to dwell on it, you continue to improve on it. Today, it's become such a great part that you just cannot ignore it. So sometimes you got to take the trend, you got to test it, put some guardrails around it, see if practically it works, but take a smaller area to test it, and you will see a great results. I think you should take it out, and that can become a part of the DNA as well, right? It doesn't have to be just one DNA that you have defined it. It can be evolving DNA as well of the brands.
Totally. I think the pandemic era gave us all of us a lot of leverage to try things. It pushed us into corners that, challenges that we never thought. I used to handle Acera, remember that time. We had to go delivery, and we had a minimal amount of delivery then, maybe 5%, 2% of our sales. Everything was from that breakfast in the morning. But we chose one aggregator. We tried it out. We did some excellent packaging. We invested on the experience that you can get with us here. How can it travel to you with little notes, with that same feel? And we actually had the best sales, even beyond what we did in dine-in. But it was short-lived, but it did its part. Again, it was tested. We first gave it a shot, and then we tried it out. So I totally agree with you. I think, Satish, you already shared about the restaurant. That would you like to add on to this?
So I think I have another example, because fortunately we launched 2 good brands in the last 1.5 years. So we had a restaurant in one of the hotels which was there for many years. It was almost 8, 9, 10 years, and it was growing organically. But it was a time when we needed to refurb the place. We needed to renovate the outlet. We said, are we going to do the same outlet again? No, let's think of a new brand. Well, that's a big ask, because if you're going to invest money there, you rather come up with a new brand. So we went completely different from a food-led brand to a beverage-led brand. Still keeping the Asian flavor, because you're in that market where you will need to have that Asian brand, because the earlier outlet was a food-led brand, and for years you moved from a Chinese to a Asian to a Pan-Asian. Then somebody went back to saying let's do Pan-Asian. So it was just running between the three. So we said, let's flip it and see what we can do. And it worked for us. There was a risk. See, homegrown brands, everybody should be ready for the risk. They said, okay, what's the risk? It may not do well. We will ensure that we will come up with a plan B. You had a plan B, so we went with the plan A completely and said, let's do it. We tweaked it on the way. We thought we were a little too early in the market for that brand, but it worked.
Yeah. Well, that's the gain there, right? There's always a risk, but you do a calculated risk on
You should
what,
be ready to accept if it's a failure. Saying that, okay, it didn't work, let's go back to something else.
Thank you for sharing that. How about you, Zhang? Is there anything that you all have done, new trend, picked it up?
I think we as a KFC are always focusing on innovation. That's our DNA. I think, more than the product innovation, what we've been focusing on over the past few years is really how we can modernize our experience. That's the core focus on our journey, where we are in. And this is let me explain here. So we are modernizing our experience, but we will not forget, obviously, our core, which is great, delicious, finger-licking good, freshly prepared and cooked on the moment chicken, right? That's our starting point. That's our foundation. We will always focus on that. However, we believe there is a great opportunity to make the whole journey much better and much more modern than what used to be. So not only focusing on the food, but also focusing on how the consumers is and will interact with us. Let me give you an example, because we are, as a brand, as you know, we think a lot and we create our vision. We have our dreams, right? So imagine if tomorrow we know every single of our customers. And we truly know them. Like, we know what they order, what they eat, how they order, which channel, how they experience our brand. And also we know what they complain about. Imagine this world. And imagine if tomorrow we are able to act even before they tell us. When they come to the restaurant, we can suggest the sales and we can issue the personalized offer. And also when things go wrong, sometimes we can and we can propose a recovery solution even before they start complaining. So this is what we called customer centricity, and this is what we are building. Right?
Anticipating your customers' needs
Exactly
instead
that.
of firefighting.
Exactly.
And that is a trend, by the way. AI is a trend, anticipating is a
Absolutely.
trend. So you're looking at technological trends that are on the market. What I'm understanding is you're reaching into that area and saying the best way is to be prepared and know what people want
Exactly
and
that.
plan our R&D, plan our product, plan our entire experience based on that. Excellent. And your company is the kind that can actually carry that. So kudos. There's a lot for all of us to learn from those kind of
No,
things.
the reality is that having a footprint, and Yum, as a KFC, we have more than 30,000 restaurants in the world across 150 countries. And even if you talk about our region, we have more than 1,400 restaurants across everything between Morocco to Kazakhstan. And if you count the number of countries, it's 22 markets in 7 time zones. So you can imagine that we need to be in that spot. We need to plan properly because one impact can have on millions of people or millions of consumers.
Absolutely. You should invite me one day to your boardroom meeting. I won't speak, I will listen then. Well, thank you for candidly giving us those answers. Now, let's see if we can be candid on the next one. The same way as we see success when we come up with ideas, and it's a kudos for the operations, it's a kudos to the marketing and understanding of the market. What happens when you do pick up a trend, the boardroom approves it, but it's a flop in the end? Can we go deep into how does it look like operationally? What does it mean for that kind of mistake financially or as a brand? The best thing is to avoid it, and we've just gone through the process. You answered very well on taking small measures, but we've all done that. We've all had our moments where something looked great, the statistics looked great, the research looked great, all the boardroom heads felt it was going to work because it worked for so-and-so, but it didn't. How expensive is that? And can you share whoever wants to go first? I won't put you on the spot again, Chris. Just because you're sitting here.
I can go first with this. So I don't know for others, but for hotels, during COVID, QR code menus were a great idea. And we put it up saying that this is what is needed and this is what should be done. It looked great. Everybody said, wow, this is something which we should implement across all hotels, all outlets, room service, everywhere. It worked well for the beginning time because everybody was petrified about touch. But when that phase got over and the confidence levels, I think UAE recovered the fastest and the quickest during COVID. Hats off to everybody involved at that point of time. About a year down the line, everybody was getting a little edgy on the QR code menus, saying that, I need my physical menus back. So when you have a customer base which is young to old and more towards the older 30 plus or 40 plus, and they want the physical menus back, we started getting this, saying that, I personally am not a big fan of QR code menus. The moment I go to a good restaurant, I'm okay with going to a QSR and getting to do with a QR code. And it's also got to do with the generation thing, I think. My son comes with me saying, Dad, why are you asking for a menu? Give me your phone, I'm going to do it. I said, no, but I want to see the menu. Why? I want to talk to somebody and get the menu. Why do you want to talk to anyone? So I guess it's got to do with this phase where a 15-year-old doesn't want to talk to anyone.
Yeah. Welcome to the new generation. Yeah.
And you see it at home every
in agreement with you there.
About a casual restaurant where somebody is going to have a dwell time of an hour and a half in the restaurant. In my view, a QR code menu can be as an option, but a physical menu makes a lot of difference. In my view, be tech enabled. Don't enhance the tech, but don't replace it with hospitality. So that's
Absolutely.
I agree, and also don't bring in trends because you saw it somewhere in the world. It worked until,
Exactly.
not everything's going to work here. Like the afternoon tea, so many brands have tried that. It doesn't work here, even though we have a population that drinks tea, likes all that, but we have a different kind of a mindset. Same way with the youngsters, they want the QR, I want the physical menu, and some brands are smart. They're putting both the options.
Yeah. So what happens with QR code menus is also that, you're used to scrolling very quickly because your phone is so, digital scrolling is something which you're at. So are you going to really look at the menu? If you are a restaurant where suggestive selling is going to fetch you 10% more, I think a physical menu, the interaction between the frontline staff and the customer
The personal
is very
touch.
limited anyways. That phase is very critical where
Yeah.
they're able to sell, they're able to tell them. If somebody's going to ask, what's your favorite item or what's the best you can suggest to me?
Visuals work, and I'm sure the QSR guys will agree that with them, digital and technical is
Absolutely.
faster, whereas if you go to a fine restaurant, there's no way I'm going to go to Zoom and look at a QR code, you know.
But
you go-
love the drive-in concept. When you want to go to McDonald's, drive in, pick it up. It's
That
the
works
most
for some.
amazing thing.
Would you like to add to that, Keval?
Sure. I mean, going back to the boardroom flops, being an operator for the last 30 years, trust me, I've gone through, probably I can write a book on the flops that we had with different brands, right?
Can you tell us about the companies you don't work with anymore?
All right, so I'll take you back. So I was doing
Tell
it-
us about a company who's not going to hire you back.
That could also be one of those things, right? So I don't know if audience would remember, early 2000, a lot of these QSR brands were getting a lot of flack for unhealthiness, right? Their menus were not evolving. People were talking about health trend, right? So I remember McDonald's was the first one who picked up the trend, went to the media and say, okay, we're going to be healthy, right? Boardroom looked good. They made the plans. They launched across most of the stores. The first thing came out was the salads, right? But the consumers were coming to McDonald's for what? Coming for indulgence, right? Everybody wants a health, but you have a decision in your hand not to go to McDonald's, but they're planning to go to it means they want the indulgence, right? Now, McDonald's wanted to be healthy at that time, splashed the whole salads, got a good media, but not even in 6 months. It just drained the entire operation, bottom line, and then they were like, what are we going to do next, right? Then came Burger King right after that. Burger King was talking about the fries, which was 30% less in terms of calories, 40% less in terms of oil thing. It's called Satis Fries, 2013 or something. They started with that trend. They assumed that the consumer wanted it healthy, and they priced it a little bit expensive than that. People refused it right away. They had to put in a lot of the inventory, a lot of the training, and it just flopped on the face, right? I think the last example I can give you still was on the plant-based patties, right, that came out. It picked up, got a lot of things, even Burger King, quite a lot of other brands got on board with it. Where is that trend today, right? So sometimes the trends are good, but it's too early to get on it. But for a larger brands like our brands, sometimes it's way too expensive to get on board and be able to really see the light of it. But it's not always doing things. I can give you the positive side of it also. The plant-based milks today. That's in the vogue. Every brand today is able to actually do it. Starbucks, 1 out of every 4th beverage is plant-based today. So some trends do turn out to be positive, not always in the other ways, but you got to decide with your brand what guardrails you want to put it. Even in the boardroom, you want to go with it, but what would be that face-wise, layered up approach that you want to take it into your brand that doesn't cost you much, but be able to really, come out as a flying colors as well.
Totally. It's like when you know your consumer wants something and you're ignoring it because you want the other thing, it doesn't shift, right? So plant-based food, there's a better way to do it. So there's a purpose and why. And as long as there's a purpose in picking up a trend, it will work. It's the same philosophy where I look at why does my client who's planning to open a fried chicken concept or a pizza concept, why is he even thinking of the health? You've got to be so careful of who your target market is. Why are they coming to you to deliver the best in that particular area, not look at the trends just because it's going there. Chris, your turn now.
Just to add to that, I think, the health fad, I think, if I could call it that, is essential. It's not going anywhere. It's an essential part of every menu. But we know, and I think most of the people, again, in this room will look at their sales, their product mix, and the health food category will show how smaller percentage it is of their overall sales, because every consumer wants to believe they want to eat healthy, but in actual practice, they still go for the burger choice, right? They want to know it's on the menu.
What they need or what they want.
Maybe as a veto buster to make sure that, everybody can be catered in a party. But the reality is health very rarely translates into a meaningful part of the sales mix.
Thank you. We have a few more minutes. Would you like to add to that, Zhang, or shall we open the floor to questions?
You asked the question at the beginning, so why are we moving towards the, the next gen of the experience? Maybe let's take the next 2 minutes to explain this part.
Absolutely, go ahead.
So, as I said, we are in the process of reimagining the experience, right? So, and we believe that there are mainly three key enablers for this, and this is our focus for the next years. The enabler number one is actually team member experience. Why team member experience? We often forget that we are all in the people business. The restaurant work because of people. AI will never replace the people, right? And there is one simple yet powerful equation, which is a team member experience. Is the key driver of the customer experience. And if there is customer experience, it is directly correlated with SSG, with the growth. Right? And when team members are taken care of and developed and inspired, they will deliver a better customer experience. Start from our core. This is our core. This is what we're going to focus on. The element number two is obviously technology. We are in the journey of becoming 100% digital, meaning ideally, in the future, every single transaction will and needs to be digital across all the channels. It doesn't mean that the restaurant will be humanless. It means that, and we see that the best results you can get is when you can combine the power of the technology with the human interaction. This is the power for it. You can get the power of the results. And the number three that we are focusing on is feedback listening. Again,
Sorry, say that again?
Feedback listening. So we need to listen to the feedback of our stakeholders. Can be employees, can be customers. And in KFC, we believe in data, and there is one mantra, right, that what gets measured gets improved.
Gets delivered.
Right? So, and actually, we just launched one powerful platform which is called KFC Listens. And this is a multi-channel platform that essentially ingests a number of sources, solicited feedback and unsolicited feedback, such as survey, aggregator reviews, Google reviews, social media, plus the survey that we get from the customer. And this tool will be able to combine all these feedback data points, and with the power of the AI, will tell you what are the focus areas at the restaurant level and at the above restaurant leader level. Right? So it's a powerful tool that we are using to improve the daily operation in the restaurants. So that is how we are building our organization in a more customer-focused way. And this is a journey that we are in.
Thank you very much. Very well said as before, all your questions. Thank you, panelists, for your time. We don't have any more time, I'm told, for questions, but is there anything anybody wanted to ask? Okay, can we have one question, please? Yeah.
Thank you. Great conversation here. What would be the one trend that you would want us to all be watching out for besides AI?
Can I?
Go for it.
So, from my understanding, I think trends need to have staying power, not story power. And one of the things which I've been watching quite closely is your health consciousness towards being vegan. And initially when vegan came up, it's a fad, it's a rich man's fad. But I think over the period of time, when we start looking at affordable vegan and try and see if you can have your substitutes right and not have a wastage. At the same time, it may not be ready for a brick and mortar restaurant completely. There are outlets in town which are brick and mortar, which are vegan, but we didn't want to delve into that. So we kind of said, okay, let's try as a pilot in one or two hotels which are fairly affluent in community in terms of will understand vegan. And we got into a brand which we said we should not call it a premium brand. So we said, let's call it Vegan Daily, something which you want to start in. It's showing good results, but I'm not sure if it has staying power or not. So the investment is not very heavy. So if you tomorrow feel that it's not going to work, we can jump out. I feel that going forward, vegan will become a part of a daily affair for people and say, okay, I food and beverage operators may want to look at vegan at some point of time, not diluting anything else, but trying to enhance your portfolio.
I think I can add a little to that. The biggest trend that you want to pick today is the specialization. People are preferring the brands that specialize in something more than the generalist thing to it. Why? Because if you have a single product, too many choices are actually paralyzing people's thinking now, focus on it. The brands that are moving to a much simpler menu and a smaller menu and straight to the core are actually have started winning. That's the biggest trend. I think you want to pick it up today. and be very well aware of it. Who do you want to be in the future? Would your brand stand up to those guys? Do you want to join them? Think that too many products are launching and too many categories is going to get me winning formula. I think that's the biggest thing that you want to be aware about. Yeah.
If I may just add from my personal experiences, any trend that's sustainable will stay. Longevity, microbiome-based eating is not just something that is good to listen to. It's here to stay. People are suffering, and I think that's a trend that is a need of the hour, and it's being picked up so beautifully in Dubai. In fact, Dubai will be the pioneer. Certain project that just one consultant like me is working on just shows where we're heading. So I'm not saying that we will stop eating and all of these things will not matter. What I'm saying is that if you ask for that one thing that will remain sustainable, I think it is health. It is actual going back to basics and eating for longevity. Anything else from anyone? Thank you, everybody, for your time listening to us today. And please reach out to any of us outside whenever you see us to ask more.